So this video from 9 to 5 Google was entitled "Should the Pixel 4 receive more updates?" And undoubtedly, yes. How things look now, the Pixel 4, and he'll say everything in the video, but I'll just preface it is it's not the newest phone, nor is it the second newest phone or the third, because there's some A series in there. But we're currently have the Pixel 6. The 6A is coming soon. But the 5A and the 5 have been out for well over a year, if not, close to 2 years now, because the Pixel 7 will be coming out shortly. But then prior to the Pixel 4, but the Pixel 5 was the Pixel 4. But that was prior to the Tenter chip being released, was their last flagship level Pixel device. So in all shapes, forms, fashions, the Pixel 4 is more powerful than the entire Pixel 5 lineup. Yet, since the Pixel 5 lineup is newer, it's going to be supported for longer. And frequently, processing capabilities are reasons why vendors stop supporting their older devices. But if their older device is more powerful than their newer device, technologically it will make sense to continue supporting it. So we'll see what happens in the future. I mean, yeah, I don't know how many Pixel 4s are still out there in use. I'm sure Google is able to adequately determine that information. But I will say of all the Pixel phones, I've owned quite a few. So I've had the Pixel 1, but I bought it, returned it. I've actually purchased two Pixel 2s. One I sold, another one I purchased and then actually gave to my father. I purchased it for fairly cheap. It was having a software issue. Unfortunately, I was able to use what Android ADB, I believe, is what it is, and just push or flash Android to it and get it working. And that was a couple years ago. So for like $85, I got a Pixel 2. So that was pretty nice. And in fact, I'm currently using that Pixel 2 as a workout device. When I say workout device, I use it to listen to music. That's why I have it. Then I purchased a Pixel 3, and I really like that phone. I purchased it for $200. It was damaged. The back glass was damaged. So honestly, I just put some duct tape over it and put it in a case, and it was perfectly functional. I then attempted to purchase, I did purchase a couple of Pixel 3As, and I don't know. I think I was still not looking forward to having overly large phones. So I've returned and sold some Pixel 3 XLs. I think it's at 3 XL. And the reason I stopped using my Pixel 3 was because it had 64 gigs of storage. I then purchased a broken Pixel 3 that had a motherboard that had 128 gigabytes of storage. I swapped them because that one that I purchased actually had a damaged screen, so I would not have been able to use it. And in the term of swapping, I ended up damaging some internal components. And I'll say I knew what I was doing. I swapped it, and then I said, "Hey, something's going on with the camera." So I tried to put the original camera or the new camera, one of the cameras, back with the phone that I would be using. But what I ended up doing is I rushed when I was taking off the back, and then disassembling all the ribbon cables from the motherboard. I ended up ripping the ribbon cable that controls the proximity sensor, as well as the automatic brightness, but it controls the screen going dim when you put the phone to your face. So nothing super important in terms of functionality, but I just didn't want a partially functioning phone. So I ended up selling all the Pixel 3s of whatever I had in my possession. So all those went away. I then actually purchased a Pixel 4 and used that for a couple days. And I was thinking about two things after a day or two. Well, I could return it, and there was a pretty substantial restocking fee. I bought it from Best Buy unlocked for $500, and there was a pretty substantial restocking fee. And my definition of restocking, I forget what it was, but it was enough for me to remember that it existed here today, a couple of years later. But then I also knew that, hey, my dad has the Pixel 2 that I'd sent him a couple years ago, and that was going to be losing support, I believe, by the end of that particular calendar year. So I said, well, um, instead of me returning this phone or using it, and I really didn't like it, I ended up sending that Pixel 4 up to my dad. So he ended up using that, and then a little bit later, I started using his old Pixel 2 here as my phone I use when I'm working out. Um, I purchased several Pixel 4 XLs. One I just didn't like. I don't know what it was. I think something felt off about the camera, so I returned it. I believe it was the camera. The next one I purchased, the lister on eBay said the camera wasn't functioning, so I ran through my normal diagnostics. Um, I set up Android, of course, and started running through my normal diagnostics. And correct, the camera app would not open. But when I, restarted the phone and then I was able to set up Face ID or Face Unlock, I'll call it, since it's not Face ID, that's an Apple term. Face ID or Face Unlock did work. So whatever APIs or applications that are, being used when you're setting that particular thing up compared to when you're just trying to use the camera app in full blown Android once the operating system is installed and loaded, clearly the camera, at least the front facing camera worked. So that led me to believe that maybe there's something else going on internally. So originally, I think I was going to return the phone because I kind of just did say, hey, I don't really need it. But I ended up opening the phone, got my little heat gun out, separated the back, which I like that I could get into the phone from the back. And then boom, as soon as the back came off, I saw that the rear cameras were not connected to the motherboard. Um, so yeah, I snapped them right back in place, and I didn't glue the back on yet. I just wanted to see if the cameras worked. And yeah, as soon as I plugged those cameras back in and turn the phone back on, cameras worked perfectly fine. So clearly, yeah, it was just something somehow got loose, and yeah, they just needed to be plugged back in. So a couple of Pixel 4 XLs I'd purchased. I have also purchased a Pixel 5 or two. One was damaged and I thought I could fix it and I didn't. And another one I sold. And yeah, so clearly I've purchased a lot of Pixels. In fact, I still have a Pixel 4a. That's another phone I was using as a workout phone / main device at some point in time. But yeah, I've owned a lot of them. And in terms of individual models, I think the Pixel 4 holds a special place in my heart because I think I purchased the most of that particular model, whether it's the regular or the XL. But one thing I just didn't like were how unclicky the buttons were, which is something I didn't realize I would notice until I started using a phone where the buttons were real mushy. So yeah, they just you'd press them and you'd be like, did I press it? And you see the feedback on the screen, but they should have been more solid. And the buttons on the phone since then have definitely been more solid. So yeah, my initial answer to this question right here is yes, the Pixel 4 should um, receive more updates. But when we get to it, he'll answer, and he doesn't answer it in the sense of the question that I'm asking, or even the question he's asking, but the answer to the question as to why Google probably isn't going to give it more updates is pretty apparent. So let's get into it.
So as it stands, the Pixel 4 and 4 XL as the second most powerful devices in the current made by Google smartphone lineup, we think they deserve support for at least one more Android version. And here's why. Thanks for watching 9 to 5 Google here on YouTube. Remember to thumbs up, hit subscribe and then tap the bell icon to be among the first to watch our upcoming videos. So here's the crux of the problem and the basis of our argument. The Pixel 4 is not like Google's pre-2021 flagships. Despite releasing back in 2019, the actual step down and realigning of the Pixel series with the Pixel 4a 5G, the Pixel 5 and then the Pixel 5a means that even though you lose out on super fast cellular 5G connectivity, the older handset from 2019, both of those, provide greater under-the-hood power without certain compromises. So in the
And in fact, I'll go ahead and say 5G in this country, and I'm not going to speak for the entire world, but I want to say who cares, but the only reason I don't say who cares is because of the natural progression of technology. So yeah, 5G, 6G, like over the next however many years, like it needs to progress. but the hype that the carriers placed behind it was way too much, because what we are now able to do that 5G has been rolled out for a good portion of people doesn't really change from what we were able to do with just boring old 4G. Let's call it that. But yeah, having an older device that isn't 5G compatible or capable, perfectly fine. In fact, on my iPhone, I have an iPhone 12, and you have the option in the settings to have 5G always on, 5G auto, which switches between LTE and 5G depending on, whichever I think leads to the best performance or battery life, something, I don't know. Or you just have the option to just turn 5G off and leave it on LTE always. And I just leave it on LTE because the potential for additional battery drain isn't worth whatever menial performance increase I might get when doing something on the phone, which for me probably isn't what most people do anyway. So I see no reason to even have 5G constantly or consistently turned on. So for a phone that just doesn't even have it, you're not missing anything.
Performance charts, the Pixel 4 actually sits just below the Pixel 6 and the 6 Pro, and this leaves it in a strange position as the second most powerful device in the made by Google smartphone lineup, and it is set to get at least Android 13 as far as updates are concerned. That said though, the lesser 4A 5G, the 5 and the 5A, are actually going to be supported for a little longer per those update plans. Without fully comparing 2019's best
And that too, right there. I mean, I hope you heard that the A series of the fours are going to potentially, if not actually, be supported longer, and the rationale then completely goes against what should be the case when it comes to supported hardware. Hey, my hardware is more powerful than your hardware. It just happens to be older. That's why I'm not receiving additional updates. Doesn't make any sense. So we'll see what happens. And this is a good video. I don't know how many people have watched it since I watched it or since I started recording this year. But yeah, my hardware is more powerful than yours. It should be supported longer. Eh, okay, so why aren't you supporting it? Well, it's just too old. But is it capable of running the operating system? Yes. So what's the problem? Well, it's just too old. Okay, thanks. Thanks a lot.
with the late 2021 cohort, as we have done that already, and you can check that video out in the description below. The Pixel 4 series shares a lot more in common with the Pixel 6 than the Pixel 5, the Pixel 4a 5G, and the 5a. For starters, there's no confusing lineup, which means there's a little and large device, including the Pixel 4 with its Full HD Plus screen, much like the Pixel 6, and the Pixel 4 XL with a QHD Plus display, like the Pixel 6 Pro. Although the camera systems are quite different nowadays and are maybe not directly comparable, there is one major similarity between them: the inclusion of Pixel Neural Core. And this...
And before he even starts talking about it, which, he will, it's additional hardware that the phone has, even though it's older. So why, again, am I not getting these additional updates when my hardware is more powerful than the phones that came out after, up to, but not including the Pixel 6? And honestly, even in 2022, I was considering buying myself a Pixel 4, even though I've had them and sold them and given them away, returned them, whatever. But then, yeah, what gets me is, well, I know how old it is, and I know that it might only get one more security update, one more operating system update. And by the time we get to the end of 2023 or at the fall of 2023, most likely I'll be looking to get something different anyway. But yeah, I definitely thought, hey, it's not going to be supported much longer. I probably just shouldn't get it because it's old now. And it's unfortunate. It really is unfortunate that I have to think about that for something that's only, I think 2.5 years old now. So, yeah. But yeah, he's going to talk about the Pixel Neural Core, which again, another piece of hardware that this phone has that newer ones, not including the Pixel 6, do not have.
This extra addition to these devices vastly improves on-device photo and video processing, and is actually missing on the Pixel 5 series, the Pixel 4a, and the 5a. This actually means that the 2020 Pixel device lineup has a technically slower camera system, despite utilising what is the same Sony IMX363 main sensor and practically identical software-based tuning, and that puts that in another weird position, making it easy to argue that the Pixel 4, and specifically the 4 XL, is a better device overall than the Pixel 5 series.
Yes, it is. It definitely is. It's not as new, but we all should know that new doesn't necessarily mean better. The one thing that people probably had some gripes about when it comes to the Pixel 4, which could be a positive or negative depending on who you're talking to. But yeah, the face unlock definitely was different. I thought it was a nice feature. Yeah, it was quick. It was responsive. Of course, Apple had done their thing with the iPhone 10 a couple years prior. Not going to try to remember years now, but yeah, face unlock in a non-COVID era is extremely convenient. And the way that they had their setup with the Soli radar, that when you put your hand into the little bubble that the radar created, it woke the phone and started immediately looking for a face, and you pick it up and boom, and you're in it already. Another thing that I did like about it is you had the option, because with Android you frequently do, to bypass the lock screen once it detected your face. Or you could set it to, hey, I need to swipe up when it detects my face, but effectively the phone has been unlocked. Whereas on the iPhone, you always have to swipe up. You can see the lock unlock, and then you always have to swipe up regardless. So yeah, I like the fact that you have the choice, and frequently I would choose to just have it unlock the moment that you unlocked the phone. Similar to the fingerprint readers, the moment it detects you, that you have, authenticated to the phone through your fingerprint, the phone is now unlocked and you are now on whatever screen you were on when you locked the device.
Only truly let down as a device by mixed battery longevity. Elsewhere, it elevated the Pixel experience with a smooth 90Hz AMOLED screen, playful design, and a trademark camera system that provided those excellent Pixel results, at least.
And I'll definitely agree with the battery life. 2,700 milliamp hours or whatever. It was not great. It was not great. So with a 3-year-old device or 2.5, but going on 3-year device, hardware wise, yeah, you're good. You probably need to get your battery replaced. If somebody continues to use this phone through this year and next, and if Google decided to continue supporting it, yeah, it would definitely be time for a battery replacement.
At the time, the addition of the Soli radar chip was an interesting experiment as well with the Pixel 4 series that has kind of ultimately failed on smartphones. It has led to more uses in other made by Google hardware like the Nest Hub 2nd Gen, but it does mean that you have access to a few truly exclusive gesture-based features that you actually won't find on other Pixels. From direct usability and daily experience perspectives though, Soli doesn't really make the Pixel 4, or at least elevate the Pixel 4.
Yeah, I didn't use it. I mean, yeah, the whole bubble that it creates when you're about to unlock the phone, that was pretty cool. But these gestures, nah, just pick up the phone or touch the screen, do whatever you need to do. But yeah, it did. Nice effort, I guess, Google. Good job on that. But in terms of actual practicality, I think LG or something attempted to do something similar a while ago, or maybe even around the same time as this, when this was actually released. And yeah, it doesn't really add to the phone. But again, that's not what we're here for. It has good hardware, and then it has some software implementations that you might not really care about. But the hardware itself, which is core for running newer operating systems, newer, more demanding operating systems, is definitely there.
Too drastically above other Pixels. Face Unlock is also one of the sole inclusions on the Pixel 4 series, and it's a big differentiator that was initially touted as coming to the Pixel 6 Pro. It's not entirely clear if we'll ever get 3D Face Unlock tech back on a Pixel, but it is fast, accurate, and vastly more reliable than the in-display fingerprint scanners on the Pixel 6 series. We've seen no new software introductions take advantage of the
And I don't have a Pixel 6 yet. I'm sure at some point I'll buy one. I have been eyeing the Pixel 6a, but one of the things that has kept me from wanting to get a 6 series at all is that under or in-display fingerprint reader that he's mentioning. I have some Samsung Galaxy S22s, and until today, honestly, I didn't realize how fast those in display fingerprint readers are. I mean, one of them has a screen protector on it, so I feel like I need to press a little more firmly, and then of course pressing firmer takes a little more time, so therefore it seems like it's not as quick. But for the one that doesn't have a display cover on it, it's really fast. I mean, if the phone is completely sleeping, yeah, you might have to tap it and hold it a little bit longer. But if the screen is awake or the phone's awake, you really can just sometimes tap it and then boop, it's unlocked. Boop, it's unlocked. So good implementation of it. And now we're talking Google's new hardware. Doesn't seem like it is the best implementation of an in-display fingerprint reader, but you do have this face unlock that was really fast and accurate, responsive. Yeah, so another reason that this phone, which is a little older, could still be supported. And I think I might have said earlier it came out in 2019. No, it did. Yeah, it did. Because that was 2019. Yeah. And then 2020 was the 5. And then 2021 was the 6. All right, cool. Yeah. So my dates are aligned.
Radar powered hardware, and that likely won't change any time soon though, but it is a neat differentiator that does again make the Pixel 4 series stand apart from the rest. At least on paper, we've got to say the Pixel 4 series is a more attractive proposition than the Pixel 4a 5G, the Pixel 5, and the 5a. Forgo that 5G connectivity and you'll get a premium Pixel with a similarly great camera, the most
5G trash. I don't want to say it's trash, but because the speeds are there, but in terms of practicality, you don't need it.
Recent Android update, fast face unlock, a good 90Hz AMOLED screen, and overall a more capable SoC. So realistically, that's a long way to say that while the Pixel 4 is not quite a flagship by 2022 standards, there is no lack of power available when comparing to previous generations and all but the latest and greatest. If the Pixel 5 and by extension the Pixel 4a 5G and the 5a will be able to run Android 14 in the future, then the marginally more powerful Pixel 4 should have absolutely no issues. On top of that, in recent years we've seen Google take conscious efforts and steps to increase the usage of recycled and sustainably sourced materials for the Pixel series and its own first-party hardware like Nest Hubs and so on and so forth. From optional cases to the heavy metals used within the Pixel line, these are all notable and important steps in the right direction given the ubiquity of tech in our daily lives. But if Google is truly serious about sustainability or indeed environmental concerns, then expanding the support window of existing smartphones like the Pixel 4, rather than focusing on new or upcoming hardware, is the perfect place to start. Increasing device longevity via software updates is also cheaper and more effective, or at least a more effective way of being a sustainability-driven tech firm. Google's prior work with Qualcomm to reduce the effort required to bring the newest Android releases to older chips means that this ability to provide monthly patches is going to be a lot easier for firms, but they don't seem to have applied that massively to their own lineups. Obviously, monthly patches will arrive in the final year in special circumstances, but the Pixel 4 series means that support would be highly warranted given its unique standing point within the Made by Google smartphone series. Realistically, being serious about sustainability means that shipping new products probably shouldn't be the number one priority for any firm. Naturally,
And that's the answer right there. And that's also the problem. So Google makes buku money when it comes to advertising. They don't need to sell a Pixel to be fine, but they do. Because just like Sony, which was one of my other videos, you're going to make some money, hopefully. And then if Android is yours, you should probably have some hardware that actually runs it as well and runs it the way that you imagine Android to run. But if I'm just going to blanket. We have all of Android and then we have iOS. All of Android, their goal is to sell you more hardware every year if they can. Because that's what they want you to buy their phones. And now, granted, you'll have, whatever experiences, blah, 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 blah. But in terms of wanting you to keep a phone for a super long period of time, that's not really, I don't think any of their real goals. It's to sell you as many phones as possible. Whereas Apple, on the other hand, is vastly different. Yes, if they sold you a phone every year, they'd be extremely happy. However, they know that they can make way more money off of you just by keeping you as a customer. So you can buy an iPhone 13 or 14 this year or 13 last year, and if you are able to keep that same device for 4 to 6 years, yeah, they only effectively sold you one phone. However, there's a strong likelihood that they've also sold you a pair or several pairs of AirPods. They might have sold you an Apple Watch. You might have a Mac or an iPad. Uh, Undoubtedly, your charging cables, which they make money off whether you buy them directly from them or not, you're going to have to get those replaced. You're potentially going to make purchases in the App Store. Like there are so many other ways for them to make money off of you besides just buying the hardware, that for them the hardware is just getting you in the door. The real money comes over the years of support that they're willing to offer for you, in exchange for you having or feeling like you have to buy a new phone every year. All of these other manufacturers, no, they need you to buy another phone. Now, Google will take some money if you make some in-app purchases. Uh, and then Samsung has a Samsung store. I don't know anything about it. I can imagine somehow they're set up that way. But case in point, all the phones that I own, I have not bought any of them directly from the manufacturer. So none of them, no company, aside from eBay, and then the users that I purchased them from, have actually directly made money from me. So they don't care about me. And since none of them, with the exception of Google, and I'm talking about Android here, have other ways to make money off of me, they're just like, oh, shoot, we lost them. I mean, yeah, the used market exists, and potentially the people I bought the phones from went out and bought something new, blah, 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 blah. But for me individually, no, they don't really care, because I didn't buy it directly from them. Now, even with my iPhone, I didn't buy it directly from Apple. I bought it used. But there are a lot of people who do that, but then also buy the additional accessories or the additional softwares in the forms of apps that then that money goes back to Apple. So definitely different approaches here. And until these other manufacturers have ways to make money off of you after your initial cell phone purchase, they're not going to want to stop selling you phones. So they'll preach all they want to about the environment, but if they're able to support a phone for 5 years and they don't have any other ways of making revenue from you, as a company, shareholders, whoever, they're not going to be particularly happy. So they need to find, a middle ground. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Because even then, if they were able to support the phone longer, yes, me as an individual might hold on to the phone longer, but also I might still sell it. And then now that person has reason to continue using a used phone that they've purchased because the company continued to support it. Overall, how important are software updates, security updates in terms of, I guess, average consumer desire, average consumer concern? It's a good question. Are they important? Absolutely. But do most people actually care about that? Probably not. But yeah, from the company standpoint, if their primary means of making money off of each customer is through selling them physical hardware, no matter how environmentally sustainable they're claiming that they want to be, their priority is to make money. So they are going to do what they can, and if they can do it in a environmentally friendly manner, cool. But unlike Apple, who has a true ecosystem, Samsung is trying. Google, I think, is trying now. Um, their primary means is to sell you another phone as frequently as possible.
It's going to be easier said than done, but the onus should be squarely put on brands like Google rather than the consumer like me or you for any real progress in this area to be made. And you're probably wondering, why should Google set a precedent for the Pixel 4 then? Well, I'm under no illusions that this request, this complaint, or this annoyance is likely going to fall upon deaf ears within Google's wider Pixel and Android teams. That said, with a supposedly growing user base and an avid fan base already, good product PR is always a reason to make positive changes such as this. With a smaller product pool, if Google is intent on tackling Apple in the tiny number of markets that the Pixel is actually sold within, then upping the Android support length would be a prime way to appease current owners and even entice prospective buyers. My own colleagues have attested to this previously, but with a focus more upon the Pixel 6 series. I think though, if you want a lasting or a long-lasting phone, then you're probably going to look for a Galaxy as a result of Samsung's update plans. Although in this isolated case, bumping support for the Pixel 4 and 4 XL would be a huge PR win, and one that logically makes a lot of sense. Sure, this could have some unintended knock-on effects, but the makers of Android, or at least the Android OS, has fewer excuses moving forward when it comes to device update windows, especially as Samsung will honour its own 4OS update promise even for cheaper devices like the A33 and the A53. Looking backwards,
and if Samsung is able to make that commitment on an operating system that actually isn't truly theirs, I mean, I know they put a skin on top of it. Yeah, there's no reason for Google not to do the same. But I will say, from a hardware standpoint, yes, Google does some nice things, but it's clearly evident that they just don't care as much. Yeah, I mean, from the battery in the Pixel 4, which was way too small, to the poor performance of the in-display fingerprint reader in their their latest Pixel 6 series, to other hardware that now isn't even phone. Like I purchased a Google Chromecast Audio, which most people probably don't know what that is, but Google supported it for a very short period of time. And I was like, okay. I mean, it might still work, but in terms of any type of additional features that potentially could have come from it, they just stopped supporting it. Now, it's in storage somewhere, so I don't have it to even test it. But that's one thing that I purchased from them that was kind of sucky. I also purchased the Google TV little dongle, not a Chromecast, but it's the Google Home TV or something, has Chromecast built into it, but it was their new thing. And I haven't used it in quite a few months because that too is also in storage. But from what people are saying more recently about it, is that there wasn't enough internal storage on it, so that way I think it's still stuck on Android 10, and Google knows that, well, if you have anything stored on it, there's not enough room on there for us to push out a version or operating system update. So they just kind of left it there to die. And I'm sure there's some other things I just can't think of right now. But yeah, Google is an ad company. They happen to make a very, very popular mobile operating system that I believe they purchased from somebody because they, clearly saw the direction that the world was heading. But they do a good job of, I think, supporting Android. But now that they have hardware in the game with other competitors and they know they're not number one, they did, come out with their Tensor chip. So we'll see if their attitudes change. Are they going to try to truly take a dominant market share in the Android system? But they don't really have excuses, but they'll find ways to say, hey, well, it is what it is, and environmental this, environmental that, but still not really change too much.
and rectifying some confusing mistakes.
And honestly, what I will say though, and this is, I guess, the more I talk about things, especially the more I talk about them out loud, because we all talk to ourselves, but the more I talk about them out loud, and I think about Windows, in addition to iOS, when it comes to Android, if you're rocking a 4-year-old phone, it might not be an enjoyable experience. So depending on what the hardware was, but then also depending on whatever type of optimization was put forth by the vendor of that hardware, you might be like, hey, yeah, I have this 4-year-old phone, and oh, look, it's supported still, but maybe the experience just isn't that good. And I don't know if this is one of those, chicken or egg situations, but it's like, well, I know Google and Samsung can see what version or what models of their devices are still out there in the wild being utilized, and maybe are they seeing that, well, after 3 years, device usage really, really plummets, so we don't need to support anything beyond 3 years. But the question might be, well, is device usage plummeting because we aren't receiving those updates? and performance is getting bad. So we're just like, hey, after 3 years, it's time to get a new phone. Also, in the modern era, as phones have gotten more expensive, it's going to take a few years to truly see that upgrade every 2 year cycle going away. Are people going to be keeping their phones for 3 to 5 years now? So, yeah, we'll see what happens. I'm not too hopeful about it. Again, just like Sony, but Google too, they don't really need to sell you a lot of phones to be a profitable company as a whole. So where is the incentive for them to actually want to support devices for a longer period of time?
Is definitely not a bad thing, and Google has backed itself into a corner in many ways, courtesy of a messy 2020 lineup. This leaves the Pixel 4 and 4 XL in a support quandary that is not unlike many other Chinese OEMs that are left high and dry when newer, shinier models are released. Hyperbole aside though, that isn't strictly true given that Android 13 will actually mark the pre-approved 3OS update schedule for the Pixel 4 and 4 XL. We've seen Android 11, Android 12, and soon Android 13. That commitment was absolutely fine back in 2019 when the device duo hit store shelves. It's still though harder to justify that when other firms out there are expanding their update plans to match the Pixel, which is normally seen as the forebearer for Android as a platform. Specifications have never truly been at the heart of what makes the Pixel experience a special one. That said, the internal hardware on the Pixel 4 is above and beyond what you'll find on the 4a, the 4a 5G, and to a lesser extent the upcoming Pixel 6a. 6GB of RAM and a former flagship processor is the perfect combination with the lightest flavour of Android to truly shine. If Android 14 does have a minimum specification requirement, the Pixel 4 and 4 XL will certainly exceed it. For years, Apple's continuing support for older devices has really put all of Android to shame. Samsung's recent increased efforts to provide expanded support windows for its previous flagship lines should really trigger Google to act, or at least do something. And we think the Pixel 4 is the perfect place to start. I want to know though, what do you think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you think this is a nitpick or just us being entitled? Let us know down in the comment sections below and try and keep it clean if humanly possible. As always though, this is Damien with 95Google saying thanks for watching, and I will speak to you later.
And yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree with him more. And we're not being picky. Keep in mind, when that phone was first released, I believe it was $800. It was on sale a lot of places, and yeah, I did end up getting it for $500, which still $500 3 years ago. It really depends on how you're looking at it. But for that same $500 in 2021, I purchased an iPhone 12 mini. Now, the 12 mini was used and the Pixel was new, but again, it's still $500. And it was a year later, but that iPhone is going to be supported for 3, 4, maybe 5 years longer than that. Well, later, I don't know longer, but later than that Pixel. And it's hard to recommend devices if support for them isn't going to be great. But everything I mentioned before, Apple's mindset is to get you into their ecosystem, sell you other pieces of hardware, and also allow you to buy things in their app store and keep you in that ecosystem. And that way they can sell you one phone every 5 years, but there's no way that you're not going to buy something else, whether it's physical or digital, that gives them more money. So yeah, I don't think we're nitpicking or he's nitpicking. I definitely think that he's right. Google has a phone that is more powerful than newer phones of its own making. So therefore, there's no reason for them to no longer support it. So at this point, yeah, I'm on board. We'll see what happens. But yeah, the one thing I would say, if they did decide to support it longer, a new battery is probably warranted. Anyway, I appreciate you listening. If you've made it this far, his video I think was 9 minutes. Mine is 39. So, yeah, definitely have a lot to say. I'm not a huge fan of me, personally typing things down in the comments. But if you got something you want to contribute, by all means, please feel free to do so.